In this section, I'd like to take a look at that list view that was rendering before with all the names in it and actually make it responsive so that I could click on it and have it actually do something. Again, it's not going to be terribly complicated, but just as an illustration of how you might make it do something in reality. So what I have done here is I've gone into my welcome activity, and after putting the adapter on here, so in my list view, I have set the adapter to the brand new array adapter. That was what was added in the last section. It turns out that list views generate a couple of different types of events. One is an on-item click listener, as opposed to an on-click listener. Buttons generated click events, we put an on-click listener on there. Here I want an on-item click listener so that when I click on each individual item, it will respond, it'll call back a method accordingly. So I'm going to set an on-item click listener to a new, and then this time the interface I want to implement is called on-item click listener, as you might imagine, which is a sub-interface of adapter view for whatever that is. And it has a single method called on-item click. What it's providing is the parent, which is the list view itself, probably don't need that, a view, and the position, and this is what I want. That shows me which index I'm on inside the list view. I also have an ID in here if I need that. What I'm going to do when you click on an individual element is two things. First, I'm going to log that item at that position was clicked. I'll put it under just some tag here so we could see it. And then I'm going to go to the greeting text and I'm going to grab the names. Now remember, the names I retrieved from the adapter. I'm going to make that final, so inside the inner class I could actually access it. I'll call get at that position and then have the application render hello using that particular name. So let me run this application again. And when I execute it on the emulator, let's see, it says, hello world, please enter your name. And I guess I have to put in Quagmire, right? I don't know who else to put in, Joe, I suppose. And now you see that my list of names is starting to grow, but there are all the names that are in there. Now here's the interesting part. If I click on a name, now it says hello with that name, and also here it says item at 1 clicked. So let me go back to it again, and I'll click on Meg here. And now it says item at 4 clicked all the way through. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the moment. And by the way, one of the nice features about a list view is that if I add more names than there is space to display them, it'll add scroll bars for me automatically. So if I use up Griffins and I go to Homer and Marge and oh, I forgot Brian. How could I forget Brian? And we'll put Bart in here, say hello, and then Lisa. Oh, and I suppose, like everybody else, I don't want to forget Maggie. You can see now that I have developed a scroll bar that I can use to scroll up and down on this. I'm just holding down my touchpad and scrolling up and down through this. And the scroll bar was part of the list view itself. I didn't have to add a scroll bar, I wrap a scroll bar around it, which you would have to do for many of the other widgets inside of Android, but at least this one's available. And I can click on hello on an individual one and see the name right there. Now the final thing I'd like to do with the persistence is show you that I can actually look at this database interactively. Now in order to do that, I'm going to switch to a command prompt. And what I'm going to say now is I'm going to use the ADB command. Let me make that a bit bigger, a little bit easier to see. ADB. ADB stands for Android Debug Bridge. And ADB has a whole series of subcommands underneath it, which I don't want to go through, but just to show you, just to give you a sense, there's lots of them. One of the ones I want to show you, however, is called devices, and this will show me all the emulators and or attached devices on this system. But I can then say ADB shell, and now I have opened a Linux shell on my actual device. I can do an ls, and I can see all the files and folders underneath it. I know I want to go inside the data folder, and inside that data folder, and again, if I do an ls, then I can see all these different subfolders corresponding to the different applications. This is an indication they're all directories. If I change directory to and in this case, the one I have in the GitHub repository is nfjs.helloworld.as. Let me clear the screen again. You could see that I have cache and lib, and now I've got a folder called databases. If I go inside databases, you can see that I have a file called names.db, and then there's a second file called names.db-journal that has to do with changes to names-db. But names.db is the database itself. And that would all be fine, except we also have a nice little command called SQLite 3 that takes the database name as an argument, and when I hit enter, now I have an interactive client that can work through here to work with the database. So I'm now inside of SQLite, and if I say select star from names, semicolon, there are the names and the IDs, right that way. If I say, I could do anything. I could do inserts, updates, deletes, whatever I'd like to modify in here. I could do whatever I like. The help comes from .help, as you can see here, and they talk about all the methods that are available. Let's see. .databases will show the names and files of the attached databases, backups, exit, help, import, log, quit, read, save, all these different things. If I went, for example, .databases, then it tells me I have a single database, and there's the actual file on this file system that I can work with. So it's just like running the SQLite 3 command on your host operating system if you had that installed and you had extracted the database onto there. So very powerful, and again, the hardest thing to remember is that you have to use a dot in order to get out. So if I do .exit, I have exited that, and then if I say exit, I've left the file system on the emulator, and there you have it. So that's pretty much everything I can show you with the database at this point. We talked about how to create the database, how to populate it, how to query it, insert, update, and delete, how to examine it on the emulator, how to pull the data out and render it inside a list view that even has scrollable capabilities inside of the view. And that's about as much as we want to see on persistence. So hopefully that will answer the questions that you might have about saving data in between executions of the Android application.